the most manipulative thing someone did to force a proposal? Story 1. My ex faked a pregnancy. Dead serious. We'd been dating for about a year, things were going well, but I had zero plans of proposing anytime soon. One day, she sits me down and tearfully tells me she's pregnant. I was shocked, but I said, okay, let's figure this out. Within 2 weeks, her mom was dropping not-so-subtle hints about rings and doing the right thing, and her friends started acting like we were already engaged. It felt like everyone was in on it. Eventually, I gave in and bought a ring. Literally the week before I planned to propose, I found out, by pure accident, that she had never been pregnant. Her best friend drunkenly confessed it at a party. She thought I knew. I didn't. I confronted my girlfriend and she admitted it with no remorse. Just said, I didn't want to lose you. I left that night and never looked back. Story 2. My cousin's ex-girlfriend used religion to manipulate him into proposing. They had a rocky relationship, broke up, and got back together constantly. But during one of the on periods, she suddenly became very devout. Started going to church multiple times a week and even convinced him to attend with her. Next thing you know, she's crying to their pastor about living in sin. She pulled the pastor aside and told him she desperately wanted to be married, but her boyfriend was dragging his feet. That man started calling my cousin privately and giving him long lectures about commitment, sin, and doing right by her. He caved under the guilt, proposed 2 months later. Marriage lasted less than a year. She cheated. With a guy from the church. Story 3. A girl in my college friend group planned her proposal story like a heist. She'd been dating this guy for 3 years and was obsessed with getting a ring before her 25th birthday. He was kind of a free spirit. Said he didn't believe in marriage, which only made her more determined. She faked an acceptance letter for a job offer in another country. Literally forged emails, fake company name, everything. Told him she was leaving in 3 months and if he didn't want to lose her forever, he had to show her he was serious. Dude panicked and proposed within a month. She turned down the fake job and acted like she gave up everything for him. Years later, he found out it was all fake when he applied to that same company. Divorce happened fast after that. Story 4. My brother's ex manipulated their entire friend group into pressuring him. She started by planting little seeds, telling people she knew he had a ring or that he promised to propose by Christmas. None of it was true. Then she began crying to mutual friends about how she felt led on and that he was stringing her along. Slowly but surely, every single friend started hounding him. Why haven't you proposed yet? Dude, she's perfect. You've been together for 4 years. What's the holdup? He got so overwhelmed that he started questioning himself and thought maybe he was the problem. He proposed on New Year's Eve. 3 months into the engagement, she confessed she'd cheated on him twice. Claimed it was because she thought he'd never marry her. He ended it right then and there. Story 5. This one still blows my mind. My coworker's girlfriend planned a public proposal trap. She convinced his family to help organize a surprise birthday party for him. He shows up and instead of a party, it's a full-blown engagement setup. Decorations, flowers, a photographer, guests holding up signs saying, "Say yes." He had no idea. Then she walks out in a white dress, gets on one knee, and proposes in front of everyone. The poor guy just stood there frozen, clearly panicking. Everyone was staring, clapping, recording. He said yes, obviously, but later that night he told her he didn't want to be engaged and that she ambushed him. She guilt-tripped him for embarrassing her and even posted the pictures online like everything was fine. They stayed together for a few months after, but eventually he broke it off. She still tells people he got cold feet, like she wasn't the one who staged an emotional hostage situation. Story 6. A girl I dated briefly in college tried the sick relative route. We hadn't even hit a year yet, and she starts telling me her grandmother is dying. Said it was her last wish to see her married. It was a lot, emotionally. She'd cry whenever she talked about it, and even made me video chat with her sick grandma, who did seem frail and mentioned marriage a couple of times. I started to feel like a monster for hesitating. Like, how could I deny a dying woman her final wish? The pressure was intense. But something felt off and I started asking questions. Turns out her grandma was perfectly healthy, alive and thriving in Florida. The woman on the call was her neighbor, who'd agreed to act for a favor. She called me heartless when I broke it off, but honestly, who fakes a dying grandmother for a proposal? Story 7. One of my closest friends got trapped in what I call the vacation proposal setup. His girlfriend at the time booked a trip to Paris as a gift for their 2-year anniversary. Seemed sweet and thoughtful, but from the moment they landed, she kept dropping not-so-subtle hints, booking dinners at fancy restaurants, walking him past jewelry stores, pointing out Eiffel Tower proposals on Instagram, sighing deeply every time. What he didn't know is that she had told everyone, friends, family, coworkers, that he was proposing during the trip. She even went as far as hiring a professional photographer for a specific evening just to get some couple shots, but really expected that to be the moment. When it didn't happen, she burst into tears right there in front of the photographer, ran off, and later accused him of humiliating her. He didn't propose then, or ever. They broke up a few months later when she tried to stage a second attempt during a family gathering. Story 8. My ex did something that still makes me cringe. She created a fake wedding Pinterest board, left it open on my laptop by accident, and even went so far as to make a fake email from a wedding planner, CCing me like we'd already started planning things. I was so confused. Did I black out a proposal? When I confronted her, she said she was just dreaming out loud, and that it was normal for women to plan ahead. Okay, fair. But then she started telling our mutual friends that I had proposed. Full-on lie. She even showed them a photo of a ring she said I gave her. Turns out she bought it herself. My phone blew up with, "Congratulations," and I had people hugging me saying, "It's about time." I had to go around correcting the story like an idiot. She said I was embarrassing her and accused me of being afraid of commitment. No, I just don't appreciate psychological warfare. Story 9. A girl in my social circle literally wrote a fake letter from immigration saying she needed to be married within 6 months or risk deportation. She and the guy had been dating casually for about a year, no talk of rings or future. Suddenly, she's panicked, crying, showing him this letter about her visa expiring and how the only way to stay was to get married ASAP. He didn't want to lose her and agreed to get engaged while they figured it out. She staged a courthouse proposal. Quick, quiet, nothing big. They got legally married and then she posted it online like it was a dream come true. 6 months later, a friend who works in immigration looked at the letter and said it was 100% fake. Different font styles, misspelled names, wrong terminology. He confronted her and she admitted it but said, "What does it matter? We're married now." They're divorced, obviously. Story 10. This one's from a friend of mine. He was dating this woman for about 4 years. He loved her, but they had communication issues and both agreed they weren't ready for marriage yet. That didn't stop her from taking matters into her own hands. She booked a gender reveal party without being pregnant. She told him, and everyone else, that she was expecting, and that she wanted the gender reveal to also be a surprise proposal event. She even set it up so he would be the one holding the balloon with the "Will you marry me?" message inside. He was in complete shock. I was at the party. It was like watching a man in a horror film. He played along in front of everyone, went down on one knee, and whispered to her, "We need to talk." They left the party early. She wasn't pregnant, never had been. She said she thought it would ignite something in him. It did. It ignited a breakup. Story 11. My buddy got guilt-tripped into proposing after his girlfriend staged a therapy intervention. She had been talking about marriage nonstop for a few months, but he told her he wasn't ready. So she scheduled a couples therapy session, which he agreed to out of good faith. Except when he showed up, it wasn't couples therapy. It was a private session she had with the therapist, and she invited him in halfway through. She'd apparently already told the therapist that he was emotionally neglectful, afraid of commitment, and even hinted at childhood trauma to justify his reluctance to propose. The whole session was basically her and the therapist ganging up on him, painting him as broken for not wanting marriage yet. He felt so cornered, he proposed a month later. Regretted it immediately. The engagement ended after she tried pulling the same tactic about having kids. Story 12. I dated a woman who was obsessed with becoming a wife before turning 30. I didn't think much of it until she started getting increasingly aggressive with timelines. One day, she told me she had a medical scare, something about her reproductive system, and that if we wanted kids, we'd need to start planning now. That meant marriage. Soon. She brought brochures from clinics, started talking about IVF and freezing eggs. She cried in front of me saying she felt broken and didn't want to waste time. I loved her, so I started seriously thinking about proposing. A month later, I casually mentioned the situation to her sister. Her sister looked at me like I was nuts. "What are you talking about? She's perfectly healthy." Turns out she made the entire medical situation up. There was no diagnosis, no doctor, no scare. Just a lie to scare me into thinking time was running out. I left her the next day. Story 13. This one still makes me laugh, even though it's messed up. I had an ex who created a fake wedding website for us. Full layout. Photoshopped engagement pictures. Bios for the bridal party. Even RSVP options and a fake guest list. She sent the link to my mother. My mom called me immediately, thinking she missed the engagement announcement. I hadn't even thought about proposing. I confronted my ex, and she acted confused, like she couldn't understand why I was so upset. Said it was just a dream board, like a vision. I might have bought that if she hadn't already told friends I proposed, picked a wedding date, and posted the website link on Facebook. I was never even part of the conversation. Needless to say, I dipped. Story 14. My ex used what I call the emotional hostage method. We'd been dating for about 2 years, and out of nowhere, she tells me she's been talking to her ex again. Said he reached out and still had feelings, and she felt like she needed closure. I was obviously uncomfortable with it. Then she dropped the bomb. If you're not going to propose, I might need to see where things go with him. It felt like a test, and stupidly, I took the bait. I panicked, bought a ring, and proposed that same month. She said yes and immediately posted it everywhere like she won some prize. 6 months later, I found out she had been seeing the ex behind my back the whole time. I ended things, and she was engaged to him 6 weeks later. She just wanted someone, anyone, to put a ring on her finger first. Story 15. A guy I knew in grad school got manipulated by a timeline ultimatum, backed by a fake psychic. His girlfriend went to see a spiritual advisor, who apparently told her that if she didn't get engaged within the year, she'd never get married. She told her boyfriend this with full sincerity and said the psychic had never been wrong. He brushed it off at first, but she started bringing it up weekly. Printed horoscopes, candle rituals. She'd even pretend to channel messages about their future. Then came the dream journey. She kept saying she had dreams of him proposing, followed by some big disaster if he didn't. It got in his head. Slowly, he started thinking maybe it was fate. He proposed on her birthday. A few months into the engagement, her sister let it slip that the psychic was just a friend of hers doing her a favor. She made the whole thing up. He was devastated. Called off the wedding. She said, "At least you finally took action." Manipulative to the bitter end. Story 16. I had a friend whose girlfriend told him she was being stalked. She said someone had been following her home from work, left weird notes on her car, and even sent creepy messages to her phone. She used it as a reason to start spending every night at his place. Then she said she didn't feel safe unless he was legally tied to her because it would send a message that she wasn't single and vulnerable. She didn't outright say, "Propose to me or I'll get kidnapped," but it was definitely implied. He started feeling like her safety depended on his commitment, and that if anything happened to her, it would be his fault for not stepping up. He proposed within 2 months. After the engagement, the stalker magically disappeared. Suspicious, he checked her phone records and found the texts were sent from a burner phone that she had purchased. All the notes, written in her handwriting. He broke it off and moved out that week. Story 17. One of the wildest things I've ever witnessed was a woman I knew who faked a religious conversion to pressure her boyfriend into marrying. She started going to his church, joined his Bible study group, got baptized, everything. Told everyone she was called by God to be a wife, and that the Lord told her he was her future husband. His family adored her, especially since they'd been praying for him to settle down with a God-fearing woman. She played the part perfectly. Modest dresses, volunteering, even stopped drinking. Then the church elders pulled him aside and basically said, "She's perfect. What are you waiting for?" He caved to the pressure and proposed. But less than a year into the marriage, she dropped the whole act, stopped going to church entirely, started partying again, and told him she only did it because she knew what kind of girl his family wanted. She said, "I got the ring, didn't I?" They divorced within the year. Story 18. My cousin's ex faked an emergency hospital visit to force a proposal. They were having a rough patch, and she texted him one night saying she collapsed and was being rushed to the ER. He panicked, left work, and drove like a maniac to get there. When he arrived, she was sitting in the waiting room perfectly fine. She said it was just stress, and the doctors warned her she was pushing herself too hard emotionally. Then she hit him with, "This wouldn't be happening if I felt secure in our future." He stayed quiet, but she kept pressing the idea that all her anxiety came from not knowing where their relationship was heading. The guilt worked. He proposed 3 weeks later. But the weird thing? There were no hospital records. She had just walked into the ER waiting room and sat there for an hour. Once he pieced it together, he ended. She told everyone he abandoned her after a health scare. Pure emotional manipulation. Story 19. My ex tried the accidental pregnancy route. We were careful and she was on birth control, but one day she said she missed her period. I asked if she took a test. She said it was positive. I was stunned. She showed me the stick and everything. I told her I wasn't ready to be a dad, but I'd step up. Then she casually said, "If you don't want this baby to grow up without married parents, you know what to do." It felt like a trap, but I didn't want to be that guy, so I started looking at rings. I mentioned wanting to go with her to a doctor's appointment, and she always had an excuse. Too early, she already went, etc. Finally, I pushed and said I wanted to hear the heartbeat. That's when she broke down and admitted it was all fake. The test? Bought online, someone else's result. She wasn't pregnant. She just thought a baby would speed things up. I left her immediately. Haven't looked back. Story 20. My brother's ex pulled one of the most elaborate emotional schemes I've ever seen. She created a countdown calendar, seriously, like a literal Advent-style calendar counting down the days until their anniversary, with little notes like only 30 days left to change our lives forever, or 28 days until the best day of my life. He thought she was just being cute, until one day she handed him an envelope labeled, "For my future husband." Inside was a detailed itinerary for their engagement party. Not wedding, engagement. Booked venue, catering, guest list, and she had even ordered matching outfits. He was floored. She then said, "I've already put down deposits. I trust you'll make the right decision." That night, he had a full-blown anxiety attack. She told him if he didn't go through with it, she'd be humiliated and lose thousands of dollars. He almost proposed out of guilt. Luckily, he called our mom, who helped him realize how messed up it was. He ended it before the party. She went anyway and posted photos of herself in a white dress, alone. Story 21. An old coworker of mine used an accidental voicemail to trap her boyfriend. She called him, and when he didn't pick up, she left a super emotional voicemail, crying, saying she was scared he didn't love her and that she was thinking about accepting a proposal from someone else who had always been there. Then she followed it up with a text. "Sorry, that voicemail wasn't meant for you." Naturally, he freaked out. Called her, asked what she meant. She said she'd been confused and didn't want to pressure him, but she had to think about her future. He panicked, thinking she was about to leave, and proposed within 2 weeks. A few months later, he found out there wasn't another guy. She made the whole thing up. The voicemail was rehearsed, literally scripted. He stayed for a while, thinking maybe they could make it work. But the trust never came back. Story 22. My ex knew exactly how to play the social media game. We'd been dating for about a year, and I was in no rush to propose. But then she started planting seeds online, subtle at first, reposting wedding content, tagging me in relationship goals videos, that kind of thing. I brushed it off. Then it escalated. She posted a photo of us with a caption that said, "Can't wait to walk down the aisle to you." People flooded the comments. "Congrats, did he propose? When's the wedding?" I was confused and mildly panicking. Next, she posted a story of a ring on her hand. No caption, just the sparkle. I hadn't proposed. She was wearing a ring she bought herself. I confronted her, and she said she was just testing how it would feel. I told her I didn't appreciate being manipulated. She said, "You don't understand marketing. You have to create the momentum." Yeah, I created an exit plan instead. Story 23. I once dated someone who threw herself a fake surprise proposal party. She told me we were going to a friend's engagement celebration. When we got there, it was all our mutual friends, her family, my parents, everyone. The place was decorated. There were cakes, banners, balloons. Then, during a toast, her best friend suddenly handed me a ring box. I had no idea what was happening. Everyone turned toward me, phones out, ready to record. My girlfriend looked at me with that "do-it" face. It was straight-up emotional blackmail. I laughed it off like it was a joke, said, "Oh wow, you guys really got me," and walked outside to breathe. She followed me and asked why I didn't go along with it. I asked her if this was all fake. She said, "Well, the love isn't fake." I left that night. The worst part? She told everyone I had proposed and taken it back. Story 24. A girl I used to work with got proposed to under the worst kind of manipulation, a family ultimatum. She'd been dating this guy for years and his mom adored her. So one day his mom told him, "If you don't propose to her, I'll cut you out of the will." She was serious. She said she wasn't going to let him throw away a perfect woman. The girlfriend knew about it, encouraged it. She'd been nudging his mom for months, telling her how unhappy she was and how she wished he would just grow up. It worked. He proposed, but it backfired. After they got married, the truth came out. She had fabricated a pregnancy scare and told his mom he was thinking of abandoning, all to get his family firmly on her side. His mom was furious once she realized she'd been played. She actually did cut them both out of the will. He divorced her a year later. Story 25. This woman in my neighborhood pretended to be dying. Legitimately staged a terminal illness. She told her boyfriend she had a rare neurological condition and that her doctor said she might only have a year, maybe less. She even faked paperwork, doctored scans, used medical lingo, the works. He was devastated, said he wanted to make her final year as magical as possible, and she responded with, "Then let's make it official." He proposed. She posted the engagement online with the #$ love before the end. People were eating it up. But something seemed off. Her energy never dipped, she never missed work, no treatment appointments, nothing. Eventually, one of his friends got suspicious and had a nurse friend look into the documents. Totally fake. When he confronted her, she broke down and said she Just wanted to feel chosen before it was too late. He walked out and told everyone the truth. She vanished from social media shortly after. Story 26. A girl I dated in my early 20s faked amnesia after a car accident. She hit a pole, minor fender bender, no injuries. But when I showed up to the hospital, she acted like she didn't remember who I was. She said, "You look familiar. Are you my boyfriend?" The nurse looked confused. She had already told staff I was her fiancé. For 2 days, she kept up the act, telling people she could only remember being engaged, said maybe it was the only memory her heart held onto. Her parents started treating me like I was already family. Her friends were texting me things like, "True love always finds a way." The guilt was intense. I actually started thinking, what if this is fate? Then I found her phone in her hospital bag, unlocked. In it was a full note titled, "What to say in case of memory loss." It was a full-blown script. She had planned the whole thing. I walked out of that room and never looked back. Story 27. A woman I knew from college dated a guy who was super close to his dog, like best friend close. That dog had been with him through some really dark times, and he often said he trusted that dog more than most people. One day, the dog got really sick and had to be put down. He was devastated. She used it as an opportunity. At the dog's memorial gathering, yes, a real thing, she pulled him aside, gave him a custom dog tag pendant with their initials engraved, and said, "I want to be your new family." Then she told him that she and the dog had talked and that the dog wanted them to get married. Said she could feel it. He was too deep in grief to process anything, and a few weeks later proposed. A year into the marriage, he told me it never felt real. He just didn't want to lose anyone else he cared about. They eventually divorced. He still keeps the dog tag, but not the wife. Story 28. I knew this guy whose girlfriend gave him an ultimatum in the form of a scavenger. For their anniversary, she sent him on a romantic citywide hunt with little notes, photos, and riddles. Each stop had a memory. Where they met, first date, first kiss. At the final stop, there was a table set up with champagne and 2 small boxes. One was a gift box with a key inside. The other was a ring box. The note read, "One key opens the door to our future. The other locks it forever. Choose." He told me he stood there for 30 minutes not knowing what to do. People were watching. She was hiding nearby with a camera. He felt like he'd be the villain if he didn't propose. So he did. The engagement didn't even last 6 months. Once the pressure wore off, he realized how cornered he had been. When he told her he wanted to slow things down, she accused him of breaking a sacred promise. It was all a game to her. Story 29. My ex once created a fake ex-boyfriend to make me jealous, and then used that same fake guy as the reason to push for a proposal. She started by casually mentioning an old flame who reached out and said he regretted letting her go. I didn't think much of it until she started reading messages from him aloud. Emotional stuff. Things like, "If I had one more chance, I'd marry you in a heartbeat." She'd show me texts with no contact photo claiming it was him. Then she told me she was confused, said she loved me, but it felt good knowing someone else wanted her that badly. The implication was clear: step up or lose me. I nearly proposed out of panic, but something felt off, so I reverse searched the number. It was a burner phone registered under her name. She was texting herself. When I confronted her, she said, "Well, now you know how it would feel to lose me." Yeah, I did, and I was fine with it. Story 30. This woman I used to work with literally faked getting ordained so she could push her boyfriend into a proposal. She told him she had just become a certified wedding officiant and wanted to start officiating weddings for friends and family. Cool, right? Then she said that to practice, she needed to go through a mock ceremony and asked if he'd help. She invited a few people over, decorated the backyard, even had a friend bring a camera. They go through the mock wedding, laughing, reading from fake vows, and at the end, she pulls out a ring and says, "Now it's your turn." He was stunned. Everyone else clapped like it was real. Then she whispered, "You don't want to undo all this, do you?" He nervously said yes. They were engaged by the end of a fake ceremony. He stuck around for 3 more months, mostly out of confusion. Finally left when she started planning a real wedding behind his back, telling vendors they were already married. Story 31. A girl in my extended friend group told her boyfriend she was going to be on a reality dating show. She claimed the producers scouted her on Instagram and offered her a chance to compete for a luxury vacation and potential love. The twist? She told him she was seriously considering because she wasn't sure where things were going in their relationship. He panicked, obviously. The idea of her being on TV, dating other guys, and possibly finding someone new while he sat at home drove him crazy. She gave him the weekend to convince her to stay. So he proposed. Right there, on the spot. No ring, no speech, just raw panic. And she accepted with tears in her eyes like it was some movie moment. A few weeks later, He found out there was no show. Never had been. She faked the entire opportunity. Even made up fake emails from a producer. All to create urgency. Story 32. My ex used her younger sister's engagement to trap me. Her sister got proposed to at 20, and from that moment on, it was like a switch flipped. Suddenly, she kept saying things like, I can't be the older sister at her wedding not wearing a ring. Or, people will think something's wrong with me. She started setting deadlines. If I'm not engaged by June, I'm done. She told our friends we were ring shopping. We weren't. She'd send me Instagram reels with captions like, this could be us but someone's stalling. One day, her sister posted a bridesmaid reveal video and tagged her. She responded in the comments with, can't wait to have a fiancé of my own by then, with a winky face. Everyone started congratulating. I hadn't proposed. She came home that night and said, well, now we kind of have to. It'd be embarrassing not to. I didn't cave. We broke up 2 weeks later. She still tells people I broke her heart out of nowhere. Story 33. I dated someone who tricked me using a surprise pregnancy announcement dinner. She invited both our families to a restaurant and told me it was for her dad's birthday. But when we got there, she stood up during dessert, held her stomach and said, we have something to share. Cue the gasps and congratulations. I was frozen. She looked at me and said, well, babe? I had no clue what was happening. After the dinner, I asked her if she was really pregnant. She said, no, but I need to know how you'd react when it actually happens. I was furious. She said it was a test to see if I'd step up and be a family. I told her the only thing I was stepping away from was her. That level of manipulation was a whole new low. Story 34. One of my old high school friends was dating this guy who came from a very traditional, conservative family. She wasn't particularly religious, but suddenly had a come-to-God moment right around the time she realized he wasn't proposing fast enough. She joined his church, started wearing modest clothes, and even convinced his mom to start mentoring her spiritually. The mom loved her after that. Started saying things like, you're the answer to my prayers. Every week at Bible study, they'd talk about the sanctity of marriage and how it's time to build a God-honoring home. Eventually, his pastor pulled him aside and told him it was his duty as a man of faith to propose. He folded. A year later, she stopped going to church altogether, wore what she wanted again, and admitted she only did all that church stuff because she knew what his family expected. He was devastated. They're still married, but he confided in me once that he feels like he was spiritually blackmailed. Story 35. A guy I worked with told me his ex faked a charity proposal event. She told him they were invited to a fundraiser for a friend's nonprofit, and that couples would be participating in symbolic proposals as part of a performance piece to raise awareness about love and support for underserved communities. It sounded weird, but she made it sound like a meaningful gesture. So he went. She handed him a note card with a short speech and told him to just read it aloud when the time came. He did, only it wasn't symbolic. It was an actual proposal. The whole event was staged. Her friends recorded it. Everyone clapped, and she screamed, yes, like it was a dream moment. He stood there completely stunned. She whispered, now it's real. Surprise! They were engaged for 2 awkward months until he realized she'd made up the charity and the entire event was just a fake cause to force him into going through with it. He backed out. She still tells people he left her after making a public commitment. Story 36. A girl I dated casually for a few months once created a fake proposal competition among her friends. She told me that she and her 2 best friends had made a pact to get engaged by the end of the year, and whichever boyfriend didn't propose would be publicly shamed at the other 2 weddings. At first, I thought she was joking, but then she kept talking about it. Even created a fake group chat between her and the friends where they sent each other wedding planning memes, proposal ideas, and countdowns. She'd show me screenshots where one friend said, hope your man steps up, or he's getting roasted at my reception. She'd say things like, you don't want me to be the only one showing up without a ring, right? And it's just a little pressure, babe. It'll be fun. Turns out the friends had no idea what she was talking about. The chat was fake, just her texting herself from a second number. She went full Mean Girls burn book energy to make me feel like I was losing some imaginary contest. I didn't propose. She called me weak. I called her blocked. Story 37. My ex created a full-on spiritual crisis to get me to propose. She told me she went to a psychic who warned her that she was spiritually tethered to someone who was refusing to fulfill a soul contract. Supposedly, if she didn't get engaged soon, the universe would sever our bond permanently. She started talking about dreams she had of our wedding, of our future children, even what dress she'd wear. She'd write down messages from the universe in a notebook and leave it open where I could see it. Things like March 18th, he's almost ready, but fear is blocking the ring. She told mutual friends I was dragging my feet, and they started nudging me too. Dude, she's so loyal. You're lucky to have someone that spiritually in tune. I almost bought into it. Then I found the same messages, copied word for word from some Pinterest astrology blog. She had just rewritten them in her own handwriting. When I asked her why she lied, she said, "Because the universe needed a little help." Yeah. No. I'm sure the universe also helped me block her number. Story 38. This one happened to my roommate. His girlfriend bought herself a ring. Not just a simple promise ring, but a full-blown diamond engagement ring that looked expensive as hell. She wore it on her right hand and told everyone it was a just because gift to herself. Then, one day, she switched it to her left hand and posted a picture on Instagram with the caption, "He did it. That's it." She didn't tell him beforehand. He came home to his phone blowing up with congratulations, DMs from friends, even a text from his mom saying how proud she was. When he confronted her, she laughed and said, "Well, now you have to, right?" She was 100% serious. He moved out 2 weeks later and told everyone the truth. Her response? He got cold feet after proposing. She's probably still wearing the ring. Story 39. I once dated someone who made a wedding vision board and then mailed it to my mom. No joke. She created a full layout, color palettes, dress styles, flower arrangements, even a honeymoon. She printed it out and sent it in an envelope addressed to my mom with a note that read, "Just wanted to share what your future daughter-in-law has been dreaming of." My mom called me and asked if I had proposed. I hadn't even thought about it. The girlfriend later admitted she thought it would be a cute way to plant the seed with my family and get the wheels turning. I told her she crossed a massive line. She shrugged and said, "Well, your mom liked it, didn't she?" Manipulating my mom into pressuring me into a proposal? That was the final straw. Story 40. This woman I worked with used a fake breakup to manipulate her boyfriend into proposing. She told him she needed space to figure things out and moved in with a friend for a week. During that week, she posted cryptic quotes like, "Sometimes you have to lose something to know its worth," and "let them go. If they come back, it was meant." She even posted a picture of a suitcase and a wine glass with the caption, "New beginnings." He was devastated, called her nonstop. She ignored him for 5 days. Then, out of nowhere, she showed up at his door with a handwritten letter, sobbing, saying, "I just needed you to realize what life would feel like without me." He proposed the next week. I found out months later that she had never moved in with her friend. She was staying at a luxury hotel, using his credit card. She orchestrated the entire breakup just to trigger desperation. I couldn't believe it. They're married now. I give it 3 years tops. Story 41. A friend of mine got tricked by a dream journal. His girlfriend started telling him about recurring dreams she was having, really vivid ones about him proposing. At first, he laughed it off. Then she started writing them down. Pages and pages of detailed dreams. What he was wearing, the location, how he said the words. She'd read them aloud like bedtime stories. She even claimed her therapist said the dreams were a sign from her subconscious and that she'd know when it came true. His family got involved too. His mom thought it was romantic and started hinting that maybe fate was trying to speed things along. He finally proposed at the exact place she described in one of the dreams. Later on, he found out the therapist she mentioned was made up, and the dream journal was started after she chose the ring she wanted. She fabricated the whole thing to create this illusion of cosmic inevitability. He felt so duped, he didn't even go through with the wedding. Story 42. My cousin's ex pretended to be in danger, twice. The first time, she said someone tried to break into her apartment. She called him crying, saying she felt unsafe and alone. He rushed over. No signs of forced entry. She said the guy must have run off. Then she said, "Maybe if I had a husband, I wouldn't be a target." He brushed it off. A couple weeks later, she called again, this time sobbing, saying someone followed her home. He got there to find her totally calm, eating chips. She claimed she was trying to act normal so the stalker wouldn't catch on. When he asked why she didn't call the cops, she said, "I just needed you. That should tell you everything." It did. He started getting suspicious. He checked security footage from her apartment building. No one followed her. No break-in. Nothing. She admitted later she staged it because she needed a wake-up call to push him toward proposing. Instead, it pushed him out the door. Story 43. My ex tricked me into thinking I'd already proposed. She threw a surprise birthday party. Drinks were flowing, people were dancing, and suddenly she gives this speech about love and commitment. She holds up a ring, my grandmother's heirloom ring, and says, "He gave this to me to symbolize our forever." Everyone clapped. People started hugging me, congratulating us. I was drunk and confused. I didn't even remember giving her the ring. Turns out, she went through my stuff, found the ring, and decided to spin her own narrative. She said, "You were going to propose anyway. I just helped it happen in a memorable way." I called off the engagement the next morning. She still tells people I proposed while drunk and then got cold feet. Story 44. One of my coworkers had her boyfriend's name tattooed on her wrist. She showed up at his place one night, saying she wanted to prove her love and commitment. He was uncomfortable, but she said, "Now I've shown you where I stand. Your move." That would have been weird enough, but then she told his mom about it, saying she got the tattoo to celebrate their engagement. They weren't engaged. His mom texted him to congratulate him, saying she was so happy and that the tattoo was a beautiful sign of devotion. He had no idea what she was talking about. That's when he realized his girlfriend had posted a fake engagement pic, ring and all, and tagged him in it. When he confronted her, she doubled down and said, "Well, now that it's out there, why not make it official?" He ended the relationship that night. She's still walking around with his name permanently on her wrist. Story 45. This one's from my aunt, who witnessed it firsthand. Her friend's daughter created a surprise wedding rehearsal, yes, rehearsal, for her boyfriend. She told him they were attending a themed party for a family member. He showed up in dress clothes, confused, and was met with a full mock wedding setup. Chairs, a fake altar, people sitting in rows. Then she handed him a script and said, "It's just for fun. You know, to visualize our future." He played along, totally overwhelmed, thinking it was a joke. But she had invited real vendors. Photographer, cake, a rented arch. She even hired a string quartet to play Canon in D. At the end of the rehearsal, she asked, "So, ready to make it real?" In front of everyone. He said no. She cried in front of the whole group and screamed, "You humiliated me!" as if he was the problem. No surprise. He broke up with her the next day. The photos from that day still float around online as if it was a real wedding. Story 46. My ex tried to pressure me into a proposal using her birthday as emotional leverage. She told me all she wanted for her birthday was something that showed I'm not wasting my time. Then she gave me a list of her favorite ring styles, locations she'd like to be proposed at, and even her dream photographer's contact info, just in case I needed help. She started crying in the days leading up to her birthday, saying things like, "I can feel you pulling away," or "I don't want to celebrate another year just being your girlfriend." I gave her a thoughtful non-engagement gift and planned a nice dinner. She opened it, smiled, and then excused herself to the bathroom for 30 minutes. Came back with red eyes and barely said a word for the rest of the night. The next day, she posted a picture of herself with the caption, "Sometimes silence says more than words." Her friends started commenting things like, "You deserve better?" and "He doesn't see your worth." We didn't last another week. Story 47. This girl in my social circle faked a long-lost childhood connection with her boyfriend to create this meant-to-be narrative. She found out from his mom that they had been at the same summer camp when they were 7. Most people would find that cute and let it go. Not her. She printed an old group photo from the camp and photoshopped herself standing next to him. Then she made a scrapbook of memories that never happened. Fake diary entries, fake letters, even fake camp crafts. She gave it to him as a surprise gift, calling it proof that the universe had been guiding them to each other their whole lives. She said, "Now that we've come full circle, don't you think it's time we make it permanent?" He was totally weirded out but felt guilty for not feeling the same way. He almost proposed just to honor the story. Luckily, he showed the scrapbook to his mom, who instantly spotted the photo as fake. That was the end of that relationship. Story 48. My ex pulled the pregnancy scare card, but she took it to a whole other level. She didn't just say she was late. She created a whole online portal. I walked in one day and saw her computer open with a login screen for a prenatal patient portal under her name. When I asked about it, she said she'd gone to a private clinic and was waiting for results, but had a feeling. A few days later, she showed me the portal again. There was a fake message that read, "Patient shows early pregnancy indicators. Suggested next steps, prenatal care and partner support." I started panicking. Life changes, responsibility, the whole thing. Then she said, "I'm not asking for anything big. Just a sign you're serious. A ring would make me feel supported through this." I didn't propose, but I did offer to go with her to her next appointment. She suddenly said the clinic shut down. That's when I got suspicious and reverse searched the portal. She had made the whole thing using a free website builder. Designed it from scratch. She wasn't pregnant, just manipulative. Story 49. One guy I know proposed because his girlfriend staged a fake farewell dinner. She told him she got accepted into a prestigious overseas program and would be gone for 2 years. She cried and said she didn't want to choose between love and her future. But if they weren't engaged, she had to take the opportunity. She invited both their families and closest friends to dinner, saying it was a goodbye party. Midway through dinner, her best friend started a slideshow of their relationship. Then came the kicker. She gave a speech about taking love across oceans or cementing it before goodbye. He got up and proposed. Right there. Turns out, no program, no offer. She had written the acceptance letter herself using an old email template from a different scholarship. He found out a week later and ended it. She still claimed the love was real. The method was just creative. Story 50. A girl I dated in my late 20s got really into astrology and used it as a weapon. She started every morning reading my horoscope out loud. When it said anything even remotely romantic, she'd say, "See? The universe is nudging." She even had a custom compatibility chart printed that said, "March 2023 is the divine marriage window." As March got closer, she began leaving hints around my place. Crystals in little boxes labeled proposal energy, candles with names like twin flame union, and mood boards with wedding aesthetics pinned to my fridge. One night, she held a manifestation ceremony and lit candles around us while chanting, "This is the moment he asks." I just sat there blinking. When I told her I wasn't ready, she blamed the retrograde and cried for 2 hours. Then she said, "The stars don't lie, you're just resisting fate." Nope, I was resisting her and her zodiac-based ultimatum. Story 51. A girl I dated tried to manipulate me by staging a chance meeting with a fake wedding planner. We were walking downtown when she suddenly gasped and said, "Oh my God, is that Stacy?" A woman came over, super bubbly, gave her a hug and said, "So good to see you. Are you and your fiancé still planning that May wedding?" I was caught off guard. "Fiancé?" My girlfriend laughed it off like it was a misunderstanding. But the woman kept going, asking if we'd picked colors and whether we were still doing the beachfront ceremony. I just stood there, stunned. After we walked away, my girlfriend said, "She's so sweet." I didn't want to embarrass her by correcting. A week later, I found her Pinterest board titled Our May Wedding. Turns out she hired the woman off Craigslist to pose as a wedding planner to plant the idea and make it seem like the universe was aligning. She called it a harmless nudge. I called it insane. Story 52. My ex once gave me a scrapbook titled Our Future. I thought it was cute until I opened it. The first few pages were relationship memories, but then it turned into full-on wedding plans. Hand-drawn diagrams of our ceremony layout, sketches of what she'd wear, and even photoshopped images of me in a tux, kneeling with a ring. There was a honeymoon itinerary, baby names, school choices, and even a mock family holiday card for 2027. At the end, she taped a note. "Now imagine how awkward it would be if this didn't come true." I laughed nervously. She didn't. When I asked her if she thought this was a bit much, she said, "I just wanted to make it easy for you. All you have to do is buy the ring and show up." It was more like a manual than a romantic gesture. I didn't propose. She ripped the scrapbook in half and blocked me the next day. Story 53. One of my close friends was dating a girl who claimed to have had a prophetic vision that he was her husband. She told him she woke up crying from joy because she'd seen their wedding, their first child, and even his vows, word for word. At first, he thought it was sweet. Then she said her grandmother had the same dream and even told her that her future husband would be a man with tired eyes and an old soul. She told him it had to be him. She kept bringing it up, saying things like, "We're just fulfilling the timeline now," or "We're behind schedule. Our dream baby needs us." Eventually, she brought out a letter she wrote to her future husband when she was 15 and claimed it described him exactly. He read it. It described a guy who played piano, was left-handed, and had a Scottish accent. My friend was none of those things. He pointed that out, and she replied, "You've just grown into him." That was enough for him to walk away before she tried to manifest a proposal through a seance. Story 54. My ex faked a contest win to back me into a proposal. She came home one day bouncing with excitement, saying she entered a local contest for a free dream engagement photo shoot, and we were one of the couples selected. I was like, "But we're not engaged?" She said, "That's the fun part. We just have to pretend for the photos." I didn't love the idea, but she convinced me to go. When we got there was a full team, photographer, stylist, even a videographer. They handed me a box with a ring inside and said, "When you're ready to pop the question, we'll get it from this angle." Apparently, she told them I was proposing and set the whole thing up to be a surprise for me. I walked off set. She followed me crying, saying I ruined the most romantic moment of her life. She even posted one of the photos with the caption, "Could have been forever. Still beautiful." Story 55. My ex used a dog to try and trap me into a proposal. She brought home a golden retriever puppy one day, saying it was ours. I hadn't agreed to get a dog, but it was cute, so I gave in. Then she started calling it our first baby and posting pictures of us like a little family. Every time someone complimented the dog, she'd say, "Next stop, matching last names." Then she went a step further. She ordered a dog tag in the shape of a heart that said, "Will you marry my mommy?" and hung it on the dog's collar. One night, she walked into the living room and said, "Your son has something to ask you," and pointed at the dog. I just stared at her. When I didn't react the way she hoped, she started crying, saying I obviously didn't see them as family. I did love the dog, but I couldn't marry someone who thought a puppy proposal ambush was a healthy communication style. I kept the dog. Let's just say custody went very well for me.